I actually replaced one of my wired high-fidelity headphones with a Bluetooth one. Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm DMS, you're watching the Headphone Show by Headphones.com. This is the Focal Bathys, and the headphone it replaced for me right off the bat is my Radiance. Radiance is a great headphone. I absolutely love it. But spoiler alert, owning this one, well, it made my Radiance feel a little bit pointless. We'll get into why in just a little bit, but first let's start off with build and comfort. Build-wise, this is classic Focal, but with a bit more of a consumer touch. We get integrations of some plastic, a light-up logo on the side, an overall pretty lightweight construction, buttons for active noise canceling, transparency mode, volume media controls, as well as our input options. So we have a 3.5mm for a direct wired connection. We have a Type-C connection that's used for both charging or as a DAC mode, where you just plug this via USB into your computer and use the internal DAC on the headphone. And then of course Bluetooth. The ear cups are nice and spacious. You can see there's a pretty large driver in there. The pads seal well, and there is medium clamp force. There's also pretty decent padding on top, and we are using a clicky adjustment mechanism. For easier storage, the headphones do also swivel and lay flat. They come with a carrying case too. It is pretty nice. It's nothing special. At least it is relatively thin. It takes up about the same footprint as the headphones when they're laying flat, so not a bad way to carry them around if you're traveling. Now let's move into subjective sound, and then we will talk about objective sound, frequency response, comparisons, and conclusions. So first part of sound, with these, yes, you heard me correctly, they have active noise canceling and transparency mode. This is a full-on smart Bluetooth headphone, which is a real departure from what Focal has made in the past. The transparency mode is average for a noise canceling headphone. It doesn't blow my mind with how open and amazing the world sounds around me, but I can still get a good picture of my surroundings without having to worry about taking my headphones off to continue a conversation or hear something else going on in my environment if I have the transparency mode active. The noise canceling, on the other hand, is actually pretty decent. Subjecting myself to a variety of environmental noises, the Bathys cancel them all out pretty well. It's no Bose in terms of ANC, but this definitely makes up for it in other faculties of its sound, and the noise canceling is really nothing for me to complain about. I would be more than happy with this on an airplane, or if you want a quieter office environment. Subjectively, this easily outclasses other Bluetooth high-end headphones like the Mark Levinson 5909, which was absurdly bright sounding to my ears, and considerably less comfortable than the Bathys. What Focal's strengths really are with this headphone is their typical tend to lean towards dynamics, impact, punch, and an overall sort of speaker-like technical ability. The stage, well, it's a closed back. It's not going to be particularly wide or expansive in its stage, but I would say that it was on par with my Radiance, something that I was more than happy to use, and still am. If you're a fan of dynamics, well, this does that pretty well, like pretty much any other Focal. Imaging isn't bad. It's better than you get in the 3-blob sort of sound with an HD650, though it's also not going to be as insane as you'll get with spatial audio on something like an AirPod Pro. But what you do get out of these is details and technical ability that I'm really surprised to get out of a Bluetooth headphone. Yes, these do support a variety of codecs, but that aside, they sound good on pretty much any codec that I use. I still feel like I'm getting a very detailed overall experience, but if I really want to take it to the next level, I use these on their USB Type-C DAC mode. So this can basically plug in Type-C here and then Type-C straight into a phone, into a computer, whatever else, flip it into DAC mode, and you can still use the transparency modes or noise canceling, but basically bypassing having to use any sort of Bluetooth codecs. You just get a straight lossless data signal directly into the headphone. That is impressive and works great for when I want to have a high fidelity listening experience on the go, but not have to carry something like a DAP or an amplifier to power a closed back high-end headphone. I also get the convenience of having noise canceling or transparency mode. As for the rest of its subjective sound qualities, it does have sort of the bass sound that Radiance did, in terms of kind of a punchy, slightly elevated sounding low frequency region. Not bloated, not muddy, but definitely punchy, deep, and fun, I would say. Mid-range is pretty solid, though it does sound like there's a bit of a recess somewhere in it, which we actually will talk about that in the objective sound section. And treble is overall nice. We have pretty good sounding ear gain. Things don't get harsh, but they're also not dark. It is just a classic Focal sounding headphone. And like I said, in many ways reminds me of the Radiance, but with more features and more options. Vocal clarity is interesting on this. The recess in the lower treble / upper mid-range gives it a bit of a distant sound to certain vocals, but with others I still get pretty solid vocal intimacy, so it varies from track to track. Regardless, I feel like vocal clarity is still all there, especially through the 3 kilohertz area, and thankfully vocals do not get sibilant for me. Now with that said, I feel like it's time we talk about objective sound and frequency response. So I have a graph pulled up here. This is on our 43AG, and you can see right there, yes, it does have elevation to the bass. It's pretty close to the Harman combined target curve that we use a lot here in-house. And you can see that recess right there in the 850 to 900 hertz region. It is noticeable when you're listening, but it doesn't sound hollow. I'd much prefer the recess to be here than have it be somewhere in, say, like the 2 to 3 kilohertz region. However, that is something that if I had to complain about it, that would be it. The rest of the treble, pretty linear for the most part. We do get a little bit above target at the 8 kilohertz region, but it's not bad. The main thing that sounds great here is that we have solid ear gain at 3 kilohertz, and overall it sounds pretty tonally balanced. Now, if you want to change this, there is an app for your phone that gives you access to a 5-band equalizer for this headphone. So you could customize it how you want. I would love to see a more in-depth equalizer. It lets me really fine-tune certain bands, but still having an EQ period, well, that can help a lot if you want to change the overall leanings of the headphone to your taste. Another thing worth noting, this headphone does change a bit in frequency response depending on how much clamp pressure is used. So if this is really clamping on your head, it's going to respond differently from someone who has it very lightly clamping on their head. I think that also partly accounts for the different impressions of people that I know who have tried this headphone. I've put this on the heads of a number of people around me, and some love it and some found it to be okay. And those are people of all varying head shapes and sizes, so that adds up. Overall, objectively, this is pretty good. So let's see how this compares to its wired counterparts and some of its wireless ones. If you compare this to wireless things on the market, like say the AirPods Max, for example, that is another expensive Bluetooth headphone. Well, sound quality, it is no battle at all. The Bathys just wipes the floor with it. If you're paying more attention to features and use like say the transparency mode or the noise canceling or Dolby Atmos, well, the lines become a bit more grayed there. Things like the AirPods Pro and the AirPods Max are more technologically advanced in those regards. Though that said, you can still use Dolby Atmos with Tidal or Apple Music on the Bathys, and it does sound pretty good. There are some tracks where Dolby Atmos really does pull the imaging and stage of this headphone far outside of what it's normally capable of, and that is one of the things that to me makes it very competitive against its wired counterparts like the Radiance, a headphone that, well, it's not really particularly easy to use a headphone like that with Atmos. Whereas this, I feel like I'm getting all of the benefits of what the Radiance had, and then some. Now, granted, Radiance I could use with a variety of amplifiers and would have different results if I wanted to say use it with a tube amp and add that coloration to it, whereas this one, if you were plugging into the 3.5mm jack, you're still going to be using the internal amplification of this headphone. But the Radiance doesn't have Atmos support, it doesn't have active noise canceling, transparency mode, or direct connection for DACs on the go. To me, this is a no-brainer. It is just a better headphone all around than basically all of the Bluetooth options on the market if you're interested in high fidelity over-ear headphones. And if you're just looking for a closed-back headphone that's relatively portable, well, this is a pretty solid option, especially given its feature set. Another thing to note is that this could be updated. They could update the frequency response for features, make the noise canceling or transparency modes better, well, with just a small software push. That's something that I never would get on my Radiance. There are other things that I still recommend. I love the Noir. If you have a Radiance, I wouldn't say, oh, your Radiance is garbage now. No, the Radiance is still a fine headphone. But the Bathys shows a very clear shift in the hi-fi world where Bluetooth is something we should be paying attention to now. It's actually getting good, if not great. And as a result of that, what we have is a truly high fidelity and high-tech headphone that really has become something special to me. Is it without fault? No, but we're looking at something that's pretty early on in the world of hi-fi. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing a lot more players entering the high-fidelity Bluetooth world after seeing how well this has done it. So that is going to wrap up this video, guys. If you liked it, please leave a like down below, a comment letting me know what you want to see in the future. If you want to get active in the community, you can at the forums or the Discord, both linked in the video description. And as always, don't forget to stick around, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Till next one. Peace.